Hello everyone, my name is Deckerlink, the trained unprofessional, and welcome back to All of the Above, the interview podcast that is as regular as Orrin Hatch's bowels. I am here, wow, just start off with that, why don't we? I am here today with the person, the man, the legend, the myth, the behind one of the most popular series on this channel and one of the most popular and integral visual novels in the furry fandom, Tennis Ace. It is Watba, worst of the bunch, Basket. A lot of names. Hello and welcome to the show.
The behind?
I didn't say the behind. I said the...
What?
Just because I talk fast does not mean that man... I know I said it right. You fucking with me. You trying to fuck around.
Hello everyone. I have no idea what to say because I've never done anything like this before, so bear with me here.
It's all good. No need to apologize. We're here to have fun. We're here to talk. We're here to conversate about all things to do with you and the show, and not the show, but the game. We're here to talk about one of the most requested games I have ever received, Tennis Ace, and you are the person behind said game. As such, we are here to discuss you, the game, all things about it. So without further ado, would you like to get started with my question? The first segment, which is literally just called My Questions. It's just a short list of questions that I came up with before we move on to the gargantuan amount of questions that we received for the Talking Back segment, aka the fan questions, of which there are a lot. There's a lot of them.
You're starting to scare me a bit here.
There's no need to be scared. I might have been part of the, I might have accidentally led to some of the problem with the amount. It's not a problem. It's awesome, the fact that we got so many fan questions this time around. More than I've ever gotten before for any interview. And it is absolutely amazing. It is partly my fault, in a sense, because in the video asking for questions, I kind of challenged the audience. I was like, I don't want to hear no basic-ass questions. I don't want to hear I don't want to hear a bunch of people asking the same shit. I want to hear different shit. I want to hear new stuff. I want to hear unique questions. And you did not disappoint, audience. Holy tits. This was... God damn, this was quite a surprise, but I can't take all the credit. I don't even want to, because god damn, it would not be anything if not for the person I am talking to today, Basket. Do you want me to call you Basket or Watba, or what the fuck do you want me to call you? I should have asked you that beforehand.
Basket is fine.
Basket.
Everyone calls me on Discord.
Okay, you're Basket. We're going to talk to Basket today. We're going to talk to a Basket. So, let's go right into the first segment of this thing, which is just my questions. So we'll start off with the first one. Tell me a little more about yourself. Where are you from and what got you into singing? Because that is something that I don't know that a lot of people know about you.
Oh, no.
Gonna start right off the bat with something that you mentioned to me. You've mentioned it to me, and you've shared stuff with me that I'm not sharing with anyone else. That's your prerogative. But this man has a voice on him that deserves to be heard. No. Okay, I didn't expect this. Might as well get it out of the way right first.
Okay, a little blindsided here. All right, take this step by step. You asked where I'm from.
Yeah,
I am from Brazil. So, yeah.
Yeah, from Brazil. I mean, that's a little different.
I don't have a lot of positive things to say about it, but yeah, I'm from Brazil.
I mean, would you live there if you had the choice to not?
God, no.
No? Where would you go?
Someplace colder. It's too hot in here.
Maybe, have you ever set? It's perfectly valuable and useful to have aspirations to go beyond the place that you have lived, to travel, to see the world. Is there any place that you would move to? Somewhere that obviously fits your criteria of being colder, but maybe
at the danger of going on the totally opposite direction, back when I was still in college, my plan was to graduate and get a job that would allow me to move to Canada.
Canada.
So instead of melting to death, I'd probably freeze to death, but sure.
Well, as the saying goes, when it's cold outside, you can always put more layers on, but when it's hot outside, you can only take so many layers off before it becomes a felony.
I know! That's what I always say! Also, my voice went high.
Yeah, it's cute. Just accept it.
My mic is telling me that I clipped, so I think maybe I should lower my volume.
No, you're perfectly fine. I've got you balanced on my end. You're perfectly fine.
Okay.
So yeah. So you're from Brazil. You're out of college. Did you graduate or did you just say fuck it?
I dropped out. I was doing something that I absolutely hated just because when I first started college, it was a profession that earned a lot of money, and I wanted to help my parents financially since they were in debt. But after they cleared their debt, I just said, fuck it, I'm not going to keep doing this thing that makes me want to scream, basically.
That's a perfectly... you were doing it for noble reasons, but once the need for the noble reasons was gone, I'm glad that you're more pursuing what you want to do. Right now, you've moved away. Talk a little bit about that. You've moved away, and are you living just based off your Patreon money now, or do you have a job, or what the fuck?
I mostly live out of my Patreon money. My parents are super freaked out about the idea of me living off of it. They want me to go back to college because they don't think it's a stable enough thing to make a living out of. Mm-hmm. I am not going to lie that I do plan on going back to college, but this time to study something that I actually care about.
Like what?
But at the programming.
Programming! What?
And I want to get into it because not only would it help me with future projects, because once I finish NSAs, I do still want to make another VN, so it would help with game development. But it would also allow me to get a job in the area of, tech in here, which is something I really enjoy fiddling with.
Cool. That's really cool. So I'm glad to hear that you're going to be pursuing something a little more closer to what you like to do. I'm always glad to hear that. Oh my God, the amount of time, because I've been to two colleges. I've been to two colleges. And the amount of people that I was around that was just like, I'm only here because my parents are making me, or I'm only here because I have to, or I'm only here because of this, that, or the other. And I'm just like, do you want to be here? No. Then that sucks. I can't tell them then don't, because a lot of people have the extraordinary circumstances. They've got, parental pressure or financial pressure or, something or other. So you can't just say, well, then don't do it, because a lot of people, they fucking have to. But I'm always so glad to hear it when people are allowed by circumstance to follow their pursuits and their passions, and it's heartwarming. Oh, Jesus. Okay, so what got you into singing? That was the last part of the first question, and you're not avoiding it. We're gonna talk about this.
Damn, I thought I had managed to circle around it.
Hell no.
I've always liked music, and I've enjoyed singing since I was a little kid. I studied in a Catholic school, and I was part of the school choir for 3 or 4 years. But I got out of it because I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of tired of only singing the same 4 songs about Jesus.
Yeah. I mean that. Oh man, when I went to church before I reached the age of reason, I I I used to participate in the fucking worship group, the people who used to sing, because I went to a Baptist church, and and they would be a little more jazzy with their stuff, but it got fucking old after a while. It got really fucking old.
Yep.
So gotta have one at least. Gotta have one. Swear to God, the stomach disease could not get over fast enough. I swear to Jesus. But by the way, I said that Age of Reason joke. That was totally ripped from George Carlin. I don't mean to offend anyone. I don't know your religious views. I don't need to know your religious views. That's not what we're here to talk about. But I don't want to be offensive at all. I'm just trying to have fun here.
Nah, I don't usually mind this kind of thing. I just don't. There are 2 things that I don't like talking about. They're religion and politics, because it always feels like it ends up in a debate or a fight, and I'm not really fond of getting into that kind of thing.
No, like none of these questions are about that shit, because I don't want to be another fucking podcast where there's just people squabbling and then eventually going into an ad break. I don't even have ad breaks, because fuck, nobody's gonna sponsor a fucking podcast that only shows up every once a half a year. Oh man. So now we finally finished with the first question 15 minutes in. Do you see why I told you this was going to take a while? Let's go on to the second question. So, something that I was, it took me a little bit to figure out about Tennis Ace, and to this day, I'm still unsure of the motivation behind it. Thus, why I'm asking the question. You're from Brazil.
Yep.
But Tennis Ace is based in Japan. What led to that choice, that setting? Why did you set it there? And how do you manage to stay authentic to a culture that you are not a part of?
The why is actually pretty simple, although kind of embarrassing to say. I'm a weeb. The how, I studied engineering in college, and I studied at it wasn't very well known, but it was like, it was a federal level college. It was my state's federal college. So there were a lot of people from all kinds of backgrounds over there, and a lot of them would do exchange programs, usually only the ones that had the money to pay for the exchange programs, but I had a lot of friends who did exchange programs to Japan and whatnot, and I got most of the authenticity information from them. Okay, Vic and CV in chat, shut up. Especially you, Vic. I see you.
There's nothing wrong with being a weeb, okay? There's nothing wrong. I mean, shit, my favorite show of all time is an anime. My favorite show of all time out of all shows is My Hero Academia. I have no qualms with that. There's no reason to be ashamed of that. I started learning Japanese because I actually like anime, and so there was a part of me that was like, if I learn Japanese, I won't have to wait for the English dub, and I won't have to fucking read subtitles. But that didn't work out. But no, there is no reason to be upset or embarrassed or ashamed of yourself. It's perfectly fine, perfectly natural, perfectly acceptable, and perfectly perfect. Do not fucking be ashamed of that, sir.
Okay. I kind of don't know what to say here.
That's okay. So you got the authenticity information from people who visited Japan. You were interested in the setting because of your weebness, and you managed to stay authentic to the culture because of the information that you were given. There is a lot of attention to detail in your game, especially when it comes to why and how. And when it comes to why and how certain things are done in Japan, those are very specific details, like the fact that the main character is nervous around being naked around people, whereas in actual Japanese culture, that's not seen as that big of a deal. It's actually the opposite, where if you're seen shying away from, like, in a bathhouse, trying to hide yourself, you're seen as almost being, like, sick, in a sense.
It's just a lot of people over there, like, I've been told this by a lot of people who visited Japan, but not everyone, but a lot of people over there consider sharing a bath with someone a bonding experience of sorts.
Yeah, and if you're shy about it, then it's kind of an insult. You're like, do you not see it? That's just like that, or whatever. And so it's attention to detail like that I think really adds to the idea. Like, if you read Tennis Ace and you didn't know that you were from Brazil, like, you would not be able to figure it out. Like that, it's that on the nose with what you're intending. Yeah, for the most part, I can read hiragana, Suzaki. Fuck. God, I just woke up, so my pill hasn't had a chance to kick in yet. I apologize. But, so, that also begs the question, is there ever going to be a Japanese, version of Tennis Ace? Because there are certain moments in the game where someone is struggling to say something, and it said, like, oh, they're struggling with the Japanese, but it's in English, so it's kind of weird in a sense. Is there ever going to be a Japanese subtitling or a Japanese version?
I mean, in my ideal fantasy world, there would be a Japanese version with voice acting, but in reality, I don't speak Japanese, so I wouldn't be able to do that.
Well, I mean, you could always, if it gets popular enough, you could always hire people, but you know, that's like way in the future kind of thing. Cool. Well, it's good to know that that's at least in your aspirations. So what brought about making the game? Like, what was the motivation behind making Tennis Ace? What got you started in it? What led to the actual beginning of loading up RenP and starting to actually do the do?
Well, I've always liked the visual novel genre. I think the first game I played in this genre was a Game Boy Advance game. It was a visual novel of the anime Love Hina.
Oh, yeah. Game Boy. Oh, I remember that show.
And even before that, I've always been into game development. Like, since I was 11, when I was 11, it was still very popular for gaming magazines to be sold in Brazil. And some of them would come with CDs that had, like, games inside. And now I know that a lot of those magazines took those games without permission. But they would take like RPG Maker fan games that were made and posted online. Then they put it on their CDs and they'd sell those magazines with those CDs, with those copies of those games to people. And I I first learned of the RPG Maker engine through there. So when I was 11, I started fiddling with RPG Maker, and I worked on it for 7 years or so,
Whoa.
maybe more than that. I stopped around the time that I joined college and got really busy, but it got to the point where I was like a mod in the biggest RPG Maker community in Brazil and an administrator in another one.
Damn.
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
Damn, dude. So, did you make any RPG Maker games that are online for people to see?
I mostly worked with helping people on their games because I'm not a very what's the word I'm looking for here? I'm not very diligent. I have a hard time getting myself to work. Tennis Ace is the first time that I was ever actually able to pour everything of myself into a project, because other than that, I tended to start something and get bored of it really quickly and just stop in less than 2 months or so. So I focused my efforts more on helping people with technical issues over working on my own games.
Okay. I totally feel you there, because there have been a lot of times where I've been writing a story or working on something, and just keeping that motivation is so fucking hard sometimes. Especially as you mentioned that for the first, you said 2 months of Tennis Ace, you had no feedback.
Yeah, Vic there in the chat, he was my first patron. He was the person who basically picked me up when I was down, and he helped me to feel motivated again. He's pretty much the sole reason I'm still working on Tennis Ace to this day. Like, he helped me a lot.
Wow, well, thank you, Vic. Because it's amazing the amount of cause and effect that comes about with just someone reaching out. Like, I've even spoke about this in like schools. Like, there was I used an example of like someone who's preparing for a speech in a class, and they're in the hallway nervous practicing, and you're just passing in the hallway. Maybe you say, "Hey, nice shoes." You're like, "Hey, I like your shoes. You have cool shoes." And maybe they hear you and they appreciate that. Gives them a little bit of confidence. Maybe that little bit of confidence is all they needed to be more reassured about their performance. Maybe that confidence and that reassurance is all they needed to be able to perform better, and therefore get that grade that they really needed. Maybe that grade is all they needed to graduate, and maybe without that reassurance they couldn't have been able to do the performance properly, they wouldn't have been able to do the speech properly, and therefore they might have failed and not been able to graduate. So it really, you think about it, and that could go on for a long time, but if you just go down to just reaching out just a little bit, reaching out for someone, to someone, it's amazing what so much can be done from just a little tiny bit of just being nice. Just a little bit of a, hey, this thing is cool. Because, I mean, look at you now. You're the most popular interview I've ever had, and we haven't even gone 30 minutes yet. The most fan questions I've ever received. You're living off of Patreon money for a game that for 2 months you had no feedback on, and because one person made sure you kept going, that led you to keep going, and now you're here. Like, that's fucking incredible, dude, right? That's fucking crazy.
I mean, a big part of it has to do with the fact that since I live in Brazil and my currency isn't worth all that much compared to the dollar, even something that wouldn't be enough for someone to make a living in the US is enough over here.
I mean, that helps, but you're still doing it. Like right now, my Patreon money, I'm not making near as much as you are, but I pay a bill with it, like one bill a month, and that's all that I can afford with it. But that's still more than I would have had if I hadn't played a game that got me started with an audience that has retained and still grows to this day. Like, there was one singular game that I almost didn't play that started this whole trend of furry visual novels, and it's fucking crazy just to think of what one tiny thing can change so much of.
Yeah, two years ago, I definitely didn't imagine my life turning out like this. So
right,
I'm as shocked. I remain as shocked as anyone else.
Yeah, it's fucking crazy, man. But going down a little bit from the existentialism into a little more of the possibly superficial. Very popular question that got asked in the fan questions, but I got to it first, was, who is your favorite character pairing among the 3 of the dateable characters in Tennis Ace? With, of course, the main character. Who do you like the pairing with the main character the most?
Oh boy, this is a question that has the potential to upset a lot of people.
I mean, you're still going to make all the routes despite you having a personal preference. I mean, it's well documented that Shirokoi, maker of Repeat, he likes the Sissel route the best. And it's the one that he's put the most work into so far, but he's still planning on doing the rest. So, I mean...
Yeah. I actually find it kind of amusing because every now and again I see... It's been a while since I last saw it, but every now and again I see people arguing about whether my game has a canon route and how everyone thinks Shoichi is the canon one because they say that they think I put so much more effort into his route. But in reality, my game does have a canon route and it's not Shoichi.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
What's the canon route?
Again, this has the potential to upset a lot of people, but when I first came up with the concept for Tennis Ace a good many years ago, it was initially supposed to be like a novel where both Shoichi and Keisuke and everyone else are just side characters. And June was supposed to be the main love interest.
Whoa! Dang! I can't say I knew, but that's my favorite route, so I'm glad to hear it. That's fucking cool. That's really cool. But, I mean, you've obviously adapted since, and so now it's a little more open. The field is opened more. So would you say that the canon route is your favorite pairing because it was the original intent?
I think it is because the problem is my opinion comes from a place of knowing everything that's going to happen past the point that we've reached in the game. So without spoiling too much, I'm just going to say that June as a pairing is the one that pushes the main character towards growing a lot more than anyone else, and the opposite is also true.
And the opposite is also true? What does that mean?
The main character also spurs a lot of growth in June that he wouldn't have otherwise.
Oh, okay. Well, hey, I look forward to reading it then. I've already looked forward to reading it, but like knowing that is on the way, god damn it, I have laid awake at night, thinking about this game, Jesus. So what about the reaction to Tennis Ace has surprised you, and what hasn't?
What has surprised me is that there was a reaction at all. Because I've been writing ever since I was a little kid. Like, I I technically say that I write since I was 12 because that's when I actually started putting things to paper. But I've enjoyed telling stories ever since I was really small. Like before he died, my grandfather used to tell me that when I was a really small kid, like 5, 6 at most, I would just I would sit him down on his bed. I'd grab a random book, and even though I could barely even read, I just make up a story and pretend that that's what was written in the book. So I'd be like this tiny little kid making up a story out of nowhere and telling it to my grandfather, who probably knew that they were all crappy, but he sat there anyway to humor me.
Oh, that's fucking adorable. Oh, that's lovely. I love that. And what hasn't surprised you about the reception to Tennis Ace?
I don't know if there's something that hasn't surprised me. Well, if there's one thing, I guess, that hasn't surprised me, it's that when I first started getting feedback, a lot of the people commenting, mostly on U18, which is where it first started getting traction, they were saying stuff like, "Oh, so this game is just gonna be some more weeb bait, isn't it?" And considering how it's placed, the game takes place in Japan, I even used the honorifics, which I go back and forth on nowadays. I can see how people would think that, so yeah.
Okay. I mean, that's... Again, you don't have to fucking... So many people insist on, like, trying to demonize demographics. Like, it just doesn't make a damn bit of sense to me. I think, honestly, if you have fun, that isn't hurting anyone, then why the fuck is anyone else upset? But, oh well. Some people just can't accept that other people live, I guess, but I'm still down. So one of the things that I have loved about Tennis Ace, probably the most, and this is something that I've discussed with people, like in real life, about what makes Tennis Ace one of the greater visual novels that I've played, is that it is easy to make emotion and drama out of dramatic situations. It is easy to make drama out of drama, but it is not easy to make emotion out of dialogue, out of character interaction, out of stuff that isn't dramatic. Because I'll look at I've often said my 2 favorite visual novels I've played so far are Echo and Repeat. And currently I struggle to place Tennis Ace in my list. I don't know where it is. It's near the top. I haven't placed it yet. I don't want to humor you and say, oh, it's number 1 now, but like it's somewhere near the top. I know that much. But something that kind of detracts from their quality is the fact that it's easy for them to make an emotionally gripping story when life and death is a thing. Like when supernatural forces are acting upon the world and people die and shit like that. It's like, of course it's easy to be emotionally invested in shit like that because it's significant. But when you have characters just being themselves and interacting with each other, and as CV4 McCry1 in the chat points out, slice of life, that is so much harder to create an emotional investment out of. It's so much harder to create dialogue that invokes emotion out of the more subdued aspects of life. Because nothing in Tennis Ace, like the most dramatic thing is June winding up in the hospital, but even that is super downplayed. like it's not that big a deal. So I wanted to discuss with you how you go about your writing process for this dialogue, for this emotional interaction that you manage to squeeze emotion out of almost every moment. Like, nary is there a moment in Tennis Days that I'm ever reading it and I'm like, this fucking doesn't matter. Like, almost every moment seems to matter, and you really come across as a dialogue expert in a sense. So I wanted to talk with you about your process there. How do you do that? How do you do?
Man, you're giving me way too much credit, but to be honest, I wouldn't consider more dramatic stories to have an easier time. It's just that it's a different genre. They have different stakes. And I do know that it's hard to make good character development walk alongside a story-driven scenario, because the way I see it, the games like Echo, they're more story-driven. The circumstances happening are what pushes the characters forward. While I've always pictured Tennis Ace as being more character-driven, but that doesn't mean that Echo doesn't have moments that are based solely on character development, and that doesn't mean that Tennis Ace doesn't have or will have more dramatic moments that are about things actually happening in the story and people reacting to it. I'm not gonna say that it's gonna be a drama-less game, but my idea with it is that people aren't just going to let you into their lives just like that. They're not going to share everything that's going badly in their lives with someone that they don't know very well. The idea with Tennis Ace is that you always have to get to know the characters first before they start warming up to you and opening up to you. That's why after you get into the roots, you slowly start to see more and more of the issues they have to deal with in their lives. Like, you see more about June's mysterious condition. You see more about Keisuke's family issues. You see more about Shoichi's issues with his father and his sister. Those aren't things you could see before we got into the roots. So it's not that the game just starts already at 100. It's just that you're slowly going up to finding out more about these people and the issues that they have. That's the approach I wanted to do with Tennis Ace. But for a future project, for instance, I want to do something that's a little more story-driven, because it's hard. It's really hard to come up with casual conversation that sounds fresh for the characters. Like, you already caught on a few times in your previous videos on times that I reused jokes over and over without noticing. That's because I start running out of ideas for casual conversation. It's really hard to keep it fresh.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, it definitely is. It definitely is difficult, and that's kind of my point. Is that it's hard. I don't want to sound like I'm dogging on Echo or Repeat. Like, they're my favorites for a reason. I fucking love them. When I say that it's easier to have drama because of drama, I think to, like, when you come up with roleplay characters or D&D characters, and there's the trope of the tragic backstory, and it's easier to have a character be more complex if some terrible shit has happened to them at some point in their life. But what's harder is to have a character that hasn't gone through, like, life and death situations, but play them as if they're just as complex as any other character, because people are complex. They don't have to almost die in order to be a tragic character. They don't have to go through amazing shit in order to be a confident character. They just can have character quirks and interesting characteristics. So I don't want to sound like I'm dogging on story-driven narratives, because I love a good story as much as anyone else. But I do think there is more of a difficulty in bringing out the extraordinary from the ordinary, as opposed to bringing out the extraordinary from the extraordinary. But I'm not dogging on anyone. Like, I want to make sure to emphasize that. So, are there any real-life allegories to the characters in the game? A lot of people were asking in the fan questions if there were motivations for each character based off of people you know, or any friends you might have, or characters from TV or something like that. Are there any real-life allegories to the characters in Tennis Ace?
Well, I wouldn't go so far as to say that any character was based around real people, but some characters were based around the concept that certain people I've met in my life embodied. Like Shoichi, the childhood friend route, he was based around the concept of a childhood friend route was based around this friend that I had growing up that I had a huge crush on. He has absolutely nothing to do with Shoichi personality-wise, but the concept of a childhood friend that's in love with his childhood friend is something that I based on that. But other than that, I can't really say. I mostly when I'm making making characters, I like to write around known tropes and then go around breaking them. So, for instance, you have Keisuke, who's the trope of the sheltered rich boy, who at sometimes the trope is played straight. Like, he has no idea what actually goes on with normal people. But at other times, you don't see him as this haughty guy who's always deriding everyone else as being below him. You see this empathetic person who's striving to be better and get to know the people around him. And that's one of the things I like to do when writing. I like to take these tropes and go like, okay, but only this part of it works, and I'm going to develop it from here.
Cool. I like that, because it's not ignoring tropes, but it's defying them in a sense. I like that. I think that's cool. I like that a lot. What are your goals with Tennis Ace? Like, do you have aspirations to make it a voice-acted game? Do you have aspirations to add in certain features or aspects? Like, what are your goals with the game? Is it just to finish it and get it done, or what are your goals?
I mean, in an ideal world, when I first started Tennis Ace, I wanted it to be this game that could rival professionally made Japanese visual novels. Now, with 2 years of experience working it under my belt, I can say that that's a lot harder than I initially thought it would be. If I tried to make the game as long as a traditional Japanese visual novel, I'd probably be working on it for the next 8 years, because by myself, I just cannot write and program and get all those art assets all that fast. Yeah. But I just want to get something that's as close to it as possible. I want to have a lot of different character expressions. I want to have a lot of art. I want to have a lot of CG. I want to have stuff that actually, I want to write a product that can actually touch people, that people can relate to. I want to write something that people can see and go like, oh, this character that's going through these issues in his life, he's a lot like me. Maybe I can take the things that he goes through as sort of inspiration to keep going forward myself, because I know it's just fantasy, and I know it's a story, and I know a lot of it is exaggerated, but what I've always wanted to do with my writing is be able to actually touch people and make them feel better, make them feel encouraged, that sort of thing.
Well, if I may say so, I personally, at least for me, think you've already accomplished at least that. I really do think that Tennis Ace is one of the most emotionally connecting stories out there. So, thanks for that. Uh, moving on, what are the moments? What are the moments in the game that you enjoy seeing people play through the most and the least?
Uh, well, one of the moments I would have liked to see people play through the most, but I've watched, I think I've watched every single YouTuber that has made videos on Tennessee, and not a single one picked the option, this specific option, which which I find really amusing because in that situation it was supposed to be the canonical option, and it's the only one that's gonna wield a CG in the future. Like, I just commissioned the CG for that one scene yesterday, and no one has picked that option during their playthrough, which was to see when you're with June on day 5 and you offer to help him get the game console. You have two options: to either carefully inspect and try to release whatever's trapped in there, or to just tug at it until it comes loose. No one ever picks the option to just tug at it until it comes loose. And that is the option that I thought fit the main character's established character the best. And it's the one that I considered the canonical choice for that part of the scene. So much so that it's probably going to have a CG by the end of the next update. Not the one coming out in like a few days, the one at the end of the month.
Well, shit. Oh, that is funny that no one has chosen that one yet. Oh, Jesus. Okay. So you're seeing the chat right now, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I have been trying to say this person's name right for like a year now, and I can't get it. Please teach me how to say this name correctly.
Guilherme Gorgulho.
What?
Guilherme Gorgulho. That's how you pronounce it in Portuguese, at least.
Guilherme?
Guilherme.
Fuck. Guilherme.
One thing I've always noticed with English compared to Portuguese, and Japanese for that matter, is that when people are pronouncing vowels, the sound in English, it's a lot more closed off. The vowels themselves sound closed off. While in Portuguese and in part in Japanese, they sound a lot more open. So, for instance, the letter A, you guys, A, we pronounce it A.
Okay. Guilherme?
Like, in English, you guys would pronounce Guilherme. In Portuguese, it's Guilherme. It's very open sounding for the letter E.
Okay. The stream fucked up for a little bit. Okay. I will keep that in mind. I appreciate the little lesson there. All right. Scrolling. Oh, and the second part of that question: what do you enjoy watching people play through the least?
That's probably the first day of the game. I've gotten a lot of flack from it the past 2 years. So much so that when I went back to add the expressions, I rewrote a lot of it. But basically, the first day drags on way too much. And a lot of the YouTubers who play the game, I could see just how disinterested they were in playing it. And when you first played it, the first 2 or 3 videos, it really seemed like you were like really impatient. Like, is this thing gonna end anytime soon? My God, this is dragging on forever.
Well, it wasn't because I didn't enjoy the content, but it was just like, at some point I needed to find a place to stop, and it just never did. It just never did.
Day 1 is one of the longest days in the game. I don't know if I can say it is the longest right now out of the top of my head, but it's definitely up there.
Man. And so you say you've rewrote a little bit of it, and do you plan on ever shortening it a little bit, or what?
It would be hard to shorten it at this point down the line, because the first day does a lot of the work in introducing all the main players in the cast. It introduces you to Keisuke, Shoichi, Jun, Saya, who's, thank God, I've already finished programming all her new sprites and expressions in the game, so that's going to be in the next version, thank God.
Yeah. Which also, cool. Glad to hear that's a thing.
Yeah, she's finally going to have a casual outfit, so she's not going to be waltzing around in her school clothes during all the scenes outside of school.
Well, I'm glad to hear it, and you showed them to me privately, and I was very excited for it, and I'm glad that that's going to be a thing now. I'm just This next one might seem a little well, you'll see.
Okay.
It's literally written as, how does it feel to have a game of yours be such a quintessential visual novel to the furry fandom?
What? Quintessential?
Yeah. Fucking yeah.
My game is quintessential? Since when?
Since I said so, motherfucker. That's what... I honestly think, like, if you say you play furry visual novels and you haven't played Tennis Ace, it's a huge omission.
I don't know. I mean, there aren't all that many furry visual novels to begin with. There are a lot of other games popping up now and again, but a lot of them don't go very far. And some of the games I liked to play the most, I really enjoyed, they just kind of disappeared off the face of the earth. So it really upsets me when they can't continue going, because they were all things I was very excited about. But to answer your question about how it feels, I don't know if I'd call my game quintessential, but if people like it, then it really makes me happy, because I love doing things and seeing how people react to it. Like, my favorite hobbies are all about that. I love writing and seeing how people react to my writing. I love cooking and seeing how people enjoy my food. I love singing and, if it was good, hearing praise. Those are all... I like making people happy when I can. That's pretty much the point.
That's awesome. It's awesome, man. I like it. Next question. How did you find me, and what were your first impressions?
I don't remember if I was linked to your first video by CV, or if I think someone linked your video to me, but I don't remember if it was CV. And after that, I just kept watching it because I was curious to know what your opinion on the game was, and I really enjoyed seeing all the feedback you had as you played.
Well, that's cool. So, Because, oh man, I've gone back and looked at some of the earlier episodes of some games I've played, and I've been like, I was a dick. How does anyone like me? The biggest example of that would be extracurricular activities. Like, I don't know how the fuck Dine Wolf actually fucking puts up with me at all. Because those first few episodes, I was not nice. I was not nice to him, and
I mean, it helps that Dine himself is a really nice. Dear God, no, is a really nice guy. Like when I first started working on Tennis Ace, I didn't know about extracurricular activities, but Vic, whom, as I mentioned, was the person who made me continue. He was a patron of Dine's. He had talked to Dine a few times. He introduced me to him, and when I was first starting out, I asked Dine a lot of questions about, how do you do this? What's it like working on that? Do you have any suggestions for this? Do you have any advice for that? And I got a lot of advice from him, and he really helped me a lot during the first 6 months of development on Tennis Ace, and I honestly have nothing but kind words to say about him. He's great. He and his boyfriend Wolfstar, they also sent me a Christmas card all the way from the US over here to Brazil. I have it tucked away safely in this drawer in my apartment, and it's like, I just love opening it every now and again and seeing the kind words they had written on there. It makes me feel better.
That's awesome. Oh, that's fucking great, man. Because, I mean, you guys have similar, similar concept, like similar surface level concepts when it comes to your game. So, I mean, the comparison is going to be natural. Like, when I first started Tennis Ace, everyone's like, oh, another tennis one? Oh, extracurricular activities much? I was... I was honestly, like, I even had to keep telling myself, like, don't compare the two. They're two totally different games. And I was surprised to find out later on that you had, I actually went through, like, your Twitter pictures, and you're like, your first one on Twitter is like, Dine Wolf told me to post more pictures of my visual novel, so here you go. Like, that... I went through it, and when I was researching this researching for this interview, I found that. I was like, oh man, this goes back years. This goes back a long time. But what do you
Well, I actually only met Dine after I started working on the game, to be honest.
Okay, maybe not years, but you know what I mean. It goes back a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think about the comparison between the two games? I mean, it's natural. It's two furry visual novels with tennis as a theme. Like, what do you think about the comparison between the two? Like,
I mean, it's honestly kind of amusing because the themes are very similar. They're both slice of life games, and they're both focused around tennis. But I've loved tennis ever since I was a small kid. I think the first time I was introduced to something tennis related was when my father bought a game for the PS2 when I was like really little. And it was a tennis game with these really cartoony characters and all that, and I really enjoyed playing it. And after that, I found out there was a Brazilian channel that was dedicated only to airing anime. And in there, I was also introduced to an anime about tennis, which is Prince of Tennis, which, despite being really out there in its depiction of tennis, was another thing that ignited my love for the sport. Nowadays, I actually enjoy watching real matches of tennis. I play tennis in video games. The only thing I don't do is actually practice tennis myself because I don't really have the physique required for that.
Neither do I. I tried playing tennis with some friends of mine, and tennis courts are a lot bigger than they seem.
Yeah. I mean, I tried playing tennis a few times, and I enjoyed it, but it's like, oh, dear God, knowing about all the... I know a ton of concepts and theory, but knowing them in theory doesn't help you at all, because the first time I tried serving in tennis, the ball didn't even land on the floor. It went all the way to to the metal links on the fence on the other side of the court, and it just got stuck there.
Oh man, that's funny. That's fucking funny. And actually, the comparison to Tennis Ace goes a little bit deeper, funnily enough, because there have been a few moments where you two accidentally used the same backgrounds.
Yeah, Di and I actually had a real laugh about that when we noticed, because I think it was right after I wrote the amusement park scenes for June, and I was posting like screenshots of it on the Discord chat that I'm in, that Dinah's also in. And I think he just said something like, "Oh, hey, Basket, I think I recognize those pictures." And I asked him what he meant. And he just showed me the backgrounds in his game. And I said, "Oh, yeah, those are the backgrounds in my game." And he laughed and he said, "No, those are the backgrounds in my game. You actually found the same stock images." and then we started laughing about it.
And there was even one that I found. The one with the lights at night when you're up on the Ferris wheel.
I think that's one of the backgrounds that he pointed out to me when I posted the screenshots.
Yeah, it was just funny. Like, it was just funny going through and being like, "Wait a minute." That was just funny.
I mean, when you're just since I consider all the backgrounds in the game to be placeholders, with the exception of the classroom one, because it was actually commissioned by me to be drawn. And so since they're all supposed to be placeholders, I get the first thing I can find in terms of stock images that even just loosely represents the scene that I'm trying to set. Because my plan is, when I eventually have enough funds to do it without having to live out of bread and water for the month, to start commissioning backgrounds to put in the game. I want to switch all those stock image backgrounds for real ones.
Nice. I'm glad to hear it, because that honestly, like, extracurricular activities recently changed artists, and they got a new background artist, and holy fuck, the difference is astounding.
Oh, like, yeah, I've seen a lot of the backgrounds that are new to the game, and I really enjoy them. Like, the artist who did them is really, really good.
Yeah, I think their name is like Gavel or something.
Yeah, I didn't remember remember his name exactly, and I was like about to say Gavin, but then I realized, no, it's definitely not Gavin. I'm pretty sure it's Gavel,
the dude from the Yogs cast. But no, is there anyone else on your radar for you to get to play your game? Like, is there anyone that you've been, like, you're eyeing, like, that does stuff in this field that you're like, maybe I'll send them a message or something like that?
Honestly, I'd be kind of interested in Dine's feedback on my game, but he's a really busy guy, so
yeah,
I wouldn't count on it.
Yeah, because Dine was one of the first people I approached to be on all of the above, and he so far is the only person to have ever refused. He just said, like, that's not something that I do. I don't think I could do it well, so I'm not gonna do it. And I was like, I respect that. Like, I respect, like, you know, because pretty much everyone that's done this has been like, I've never done this before. This is something weird. I don't know how good I'm going to be at it. And I've had to reassure pretty much everyone that I've ever had on the show. But he was the first and only one so far that has ever refused. And it kind of hurts. I'm not gonna lie, but you know what? I respect it. I understand it, and that's all good. Are there any credits in the game that you would like to acknowledge real quick? People who have contributed either to the art or the music or the programming or the writing or anything that isn't you, that you would like to give a shout out?
CV composed a few tracks for me to use in the game, and I really appreciate it because I love some of the tracks that he made. Let's see. Oh god, I'm kind of drawing a blank here. I commissioned a programmer after the game was a few months old to work on the new UI, because the UI the game has right now is the 2.0 version. I had another pretty basic and honestly pretty terrible UI in place before, but since I hired the guy from the Ren'Py forums, I don't really remember his name right now. I'm sorry.
No, it's an acknowledgement nonetheless. What about where you get the art from?
The art is all drawn by a friend of mine. I don't know if I should use her real name here, so I'm just going to refer to her by the name she uses in her DeviantArt, Nyaru. By the way, you guys can totally go check her DeviantArt. I popped the link in here if I could, but I don't think I can do that via audio.
No, just send it to me on Discord, and I'll put it in the description of the video when it comes out.
Okay, but yeah, at first she wasn't actually supposed to be the official artist for my game, because when we first started, I was like, okay, you have no experience drawing furries, you barely draw any men. You probably wouldn't be very comfortable working in an adult game. But since you're my friend, do you think you could do me a solid and do like just really basic looking sprites for really cheap because I'm paying out of pocket, just so I can put out an initial demo? And people loved her art style so much, even though those sprites have long since been decommissioned. And I honestly love working with her. She's really sweet. I love talking to her. Her art, I love her art. I love the way she draws eyes. I love how emotive her characters are. I love watching her grow as an artist because she's been improving so much. And I love working with her. She's a really good friend of mine. And it makes me really happy that she eventually agreed to stay in Tennessee full time.
That's awesome. That's fucking awesome, man. That's actually pretty funny because the original picture of my Sona of Jack that has the Legend of Zelda Link outfit, that was made by a friend of mine named Ivy, or Doodle Monster, who also was not experienced in drawing furries. So because of the commission that I made from her, she now feels more confident in doing furry commissions. So now she's open for them. And so that is pretty fucking cool. That's pretty fucking cool, man. So before we get into the Talking Back fan questions, because we got a lot of those to go through. Do you have any questions for me before we continue?
Okay, I was not prepared for this.
It's okay. If you don't have any, we could just breeze through. I just wanted to give a quick moment to possibly turn the tables a little bit if you had anything you were curious about.
Right at the moment, I really can't think of anything. I'm sorry.
No. It's cool, bruh. It's cool. I just wanted to give you the opportunity if you had anything on your mind. But if you don't, then that's cool. We go right into Talking Back, the fan questions, of which we have almost 80. So let's not beat around the fucking bush. Let's get into this shit. The first one is from Griffin the Husky, who asks, what is your favorite band and favorite food?
Oh, those are two completely unrelated things.
You don't eat music?
I see sounds. Does that count? No, I'm kidding. I don't actually follow artists because it's rare for me to like multiple songs out of a single artist. I mostly just listen to random music that I like, because there can be this one song that I absolutely adore, and then I try to listen to everything else the artist has put out, and I just keep thinking, I don't really like any of this.
Dude, I am the exact same fucking way. Like, holy God. Like, that's why I hated Pandora for so long, because it would be like, I want to listen to this song. And they'd be like, all right, so you must like this song, this other song then. I'd be like, no, I wanted to listen to this song. This is the song I want. Don't tell me to listen to other shit. And your favorite food?
Let's see. Probably meatballs with rice.
Do I make the joke? Nah, I won't make the joke. Okay. Meatballs and rice. Good, healthy meal. I like. Next up is from Nick, who asks, is Haruki going to be a route?
I have played with the idea of making some secondary characters routes, but first of all, I commit to none of that at the moment. I'm not gonna make characters into routes until I'm more or less done with the current ones. And even if I do, I'm honestly not sure, because might be an interesting bit of trivia. But Haruki was actually supposed to be a route instead of Keisuke.
Oh shit!
It was the routes were initially Haruki, Keisuke, and Jun. But first of all, because of Haruki's personality, he doesn't really fit well in group scenarios. So trying to include him in group outings would be different. I'd basically be juggling two completely parallel stories, because most of the scenes with him would have to be just him and the MC. And I didn't think it would work out for the best if 2 out of the 3 dateable characters came from the same club. If both of them were in the volleyball club at the same time, it wouldn't work all that well. And one of the reasons I wanted Haruki to be a root was because he has this kind of antagonistic relationship with Shoichi that's actually very similar to Keisuke's own antagonistic relationship. And I just went like, you know what? Keisuke fits the bill so much better. I'm going to develop this guy from a secondary character into a main one, and I'm going to relegate this guy that was supposed to be a main character to the side. And yeah, Keisuke wasn't supposed to be a root. Haruki was, but I switched things around once I noticed that it would work better that way.
Damn, I had no fucking idea. That's cool to know. That's really cool to know. I guess this next question we kind of already addressed is from Bob Rob, who asked, are you a tennis player yourself? If so, how would you rate yourself?
I would rate myself as couch potato out of 10.
Joey K asks, will there ever be more routes in the future? Which we also kind of addressed just now. You said you're not committing to any, but maybe.
Yeah, maybe, but no promises.
Cool. T-Dog12 Ray asks, why can't people date girls like Hitoka, Saya, class rep? Why only guys?
I'm pretty sure, like, the main reason is gonna sound kind of silly, but I grew up surrounded by girls. Like, most of my friends, when I was all the way from when I was 5 years old until I graduated from high school, basically every single one of my IRL friends were girls. And while I'm confident that I could more or less write a female character in a social setting, which is mostly what I do as Saya, I don't think I could convincingly write a girl in romantic scenarios. I don't really understand how the female mind works. I know girls are different from guys in certain aspects, and I worry that I'd I'd butcher any female character's personality if I try to write her in a romantic setting.
Okay. T-Dog12Ray also asks, why tennis?
Because I love tennis.
Makes sense. January McGee asks, when can we expect the next update to the game?
Well, I was working on it until 6 in the morning today. Then I slept for about 4 hours, cooked my lunch, and got back to working on it until the interview started. I want to get it all finished by the 7th. Hopefully I do. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, cool. Nari Dragon asks, do you plan on selling merch for the game? If so, what things would you sell?
I don't think my game has the kind of interest or commercial appeal that would lead to merchandise, so no plans for it at the moment.
I mean, my mouse is sitting upon a Harold Grifter mouse pad from extracurricular activities. You never know. You never know, man. That's something else you could talk to Dine about, because he seems to have a fucking market right now. Because it seems like everyone wants the T-shirts or the Dakimakuras or shit like that. So I don't know. It's just something to contemplate.
But Dine's audience is much bigger than mine. I think has a 10 times bigger audience than I do. So,
well, I mean, you never know in what the future brings. That's all I'm gonna say. Nara Dragon also asks, has the game changed much from your original vision? If so, in what ways? We've kind of discussed a couple of them, but what are some of the other ways that it has changed from your original vision?
Okay, I don't remember many. I used to have this all written down when I first started, because I first started working in the game in the beginning of 2016. I published the game. I first started working it in the beginning of 2016. But the idea of the main idea was something I had about 2 years prior. So it was something that was cooking a lot in my head. I changed a lot of things before releasing the first demo. Like, many characters had different names or fit different tropes. Like, Shoichi was still supposed to be the childhood friend love interest, but he wasn't supposed to be a sports guy. My original draft of Shoichi, he was supposed to be a small, geeky dog who just enjoyed playing video games a lot and messing with computers. And he evolved into this guy that's like really athletic and loves to exercise. Just complete 180. I don't remember what name I had given Shoichi in my first draft. I do remember, I'm pretty sure the name I was originally going to give Jun instead of Jun Kobayashi, it was going to be Makoto Yuki, but I also changed that one.
Why?
I didn't think Makoto Yuki rolled out the tongue as well as Jun Kobayashi. Jun Kobayashi sounds really good.
He does. Kira_TLK asks, for the songs in June's set list, was there any reasoning for the pieces chosen aside from their technical difficulty?
I researched a lot of classical piano music, and I picked up the ones I thought both I liked the sound of, and that sounded difficult. The only song out of the ones chosen that I actually knew before starting to work on it was Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata. I used the third movement in the game. The first time I heard the Moonlight Sonata was when I played Resident Evil 1. There was a segment where you had to play the Moonlight Sonata on the piano to unlock a door. Convoluted, I know. And that got me curious to hear the rest of it. So I ended up listening to Moonlight Sonata movements 1, 2, and 3. And 3 was my favorite movement because of how fast-paced it is. Other than that, I sometimes asked questions to friends of mine who know a lot more about piano than I do. Like, oh, I'm trying to write this, and that for this scene. Do you have any musical pieces that you think would fit in this kind of narrative? And they suggested it to me. Like the song that's played by June's rival in the first competition, that was totally a suggestion that I got from one of my friends. I never heard of that song before, but I did do research on the composer after I chose it, and I tried to write only the facts that I found in my research.
Cool. That's cool. That's cool. Toonie Tunes asks, what character is your favorite?
That's hard to answer because in a way they're all my characters. They're all my precious little babies, so to speak. So it's kind of like asking me to pick a favorite child.
I know. But even with children, there are some that you just love a little more than the rest.
I honestly don't know. I love a lot of characters for different reasons. I love Saya's spunky attitude. I love Keisuke's rational mind. I love just how cheerful and optimistic June is. I love how responsible Shoichi is. I love how the protagonist is this person that actually has hopes and dreams that he works towards. Like, not many people actively work towards the dreams they have. Most just give up because they're impossible. So I like writing someone that's really driven, even if he's going through a slump from the moment the story starts. And the side characters are a little more one note, but I still love them all. Mostly because I know details about them that aren't actually shown in the game, because if I want to write them convincingly from the parts of them that I do portray, then I need to develop the other parts that I do not.
True, because, I mean, they're not main characters, so it's not like every character is going to get a full biography in a narrative sense. Like, not every character is going to get an interaction where you get to hear their entire fucking backstory.
Yeah.
You got a dog in the background? What's going on there?
I've got a dog in the neighboring building.
Jesus, neighboring building. It sounds like it's in your apartment.
Yeah, my mic is that sensitive.
Jesus.
And also the dog is that loud.
Jesus. Creepaminer asks, when Decker Link is voicing the characters, what voices do you like and dislike?
Oh no, it's this question again. You already asked me this.
This was in a stream. Now we're doing it in an interview. It's different.
Oh, I don't really know what to say here. I don't like criticizing people, so
you don't have. I knew that going into this question. I'll already tell you, you don't have to do the dislike one. Which ones do you like, though? You can be.
I like Keisuke's voice because it does capture the fact that he's supposed to have a slightly deeper sounding voice. Well, and he does sound pretty composed most of the time, which is an integral part of his character. So that's probably the one I like the most.
Cool. See, it didn't have to be that bad of an interaction. You're just finding out. Oh, jeez, McCry is CV in the chat. Lego, Vic's voice is canon.
If I made that canon, Vic would literally kill me. So no.
Oh man. Next up is a question from 36OP God, who asks, do you ever plan to have the characters voice acted?
while I would like to, I don't like. The problem with voice acting is that the game is still good even without voice acting. Like, a game can be phenomenal even without voice acting. Fate Stay Night, which is one of my favorite visual novels, when it was first released, it had nothing for voices, and it's one of the best visual novels I've ever played. But a bad voice acting can totally ruin a game, so that's not really a risk I'm willing to take at the moment.
Okay, makes sense. Well, if you ever decide to, if you ever want to, I'm just saying I'm available.
I'm struggling to try and understand what you said because half of it mumbled.
I made a joke. I said, if you ever decide to get voice actors, I am available.
That's actually one of the reasons why I don't see my game ever having voice acting, because when I picture my game voice acted, I picture actual Japanese voices, and there's no way I could get that.
You never know. You never know. I mean, there are voice actors for hire in every country, so you never know. Next up is a question from Doombringer Is My Name, who asks, if you could have any character in the game be in a relationship with you in real life, who would it be?
Boy, that's a really difficult question. Like I said, I love different aspects of different characters. It's really hard to pick. Like, Shoichi would by far be the one that goes above and beyond to please you as a partner, while Keisuke would be the person that's always trying to encourage you behind the scenes so you never feel like he's meddling too much. June would be the person that's always going like, oh my god, I'm so excited for you every time that something happens. And I tire out in social situations really fast, so trying to get used to a person like that would take a lot of effort.
Well, so it wouldn't be June, but between Shuichi and Keisuke then, who would you pick?
God, it's... Oh god, I was about to make a horrible joke. I guess Shuichi?
Okay, all right. Doombringer asked a number of questions. The next one is slightly evocative, who asks, and I quote, would you kiss Deckerlink on the lips?
What?
It is real. It was a question that was asked. I'm not fucking with you.
I mean, that's I'm kind of very old-fashioned when it comes to this kind of thing. I don't like the idea of kissing someone unless I'm like really close to them or am actually dating them. So that's really hard to answer.
The answer would be no. If you have prerequisites of which we have none, then the answer would be no. It's simple enough. I'm not offended.
I suppose.
Doombringer also asks, were there any deleted characters that made it very close to being in the game?
No, I honestly don't remember deleting any character. Tweaking, yes. Deleting, no.
Doombringer asks, is the protagonist a top or bottom?
That depends on the route.
Ooh, they're versatile, eh?
Yeah.
Nice. Doombringer also asks, what was your first ever visual novel that you played or watched?
I actually think I answered this in the first 10 or 15 minutes of the stream. And I mentioned that the first time I ever played a visual novel was when I played the Latina visual novel on the Game Boy.
Oh yeah, true, you did. And Doomringer's last question is, which of Deckerling's voices most closely matched the voice you had in mind? Would it be Keisuke?
Yeah, I think I already answered this question technically.
All right. It's there's so many to get through. I'm not pre-reading them. I'm just like plowing through them because we're only at like 21.
You're just plowing through them. Should I make the obvious joke?
No. The Keeper asks, 2 trains, Train A and Train B, simultaneously depart Station A and Station B. Station A and Station B are 252 miles apart from each other. Train A is moving at 124.7 miles per hour towards Station B, and Train B is moving at 253.5 miles per hour towards Station A. If both trains departed at 10 a.m. and it is now 10:08 a.m., how much longer until both trains pass each other? Answer A, 31.054 minutes. B, 16.232 minutes. C, 32.049 minutes. Or D, 32.058 minutes.
I'm having flashbacks to my days studying engineering, and that's not cool. Can I pass?
Yes, you can pass because they didn't actually say which one was the right answer, and I didn't fucking figure it out. So moving the fuck on. Next up. Next up is the first of many questions submitted by CV4.
CV, what have you done?
Oh my god, they put in so many. Like, CV is almost undoubtedly the reason we got up to 80.
oh god, okay, hit me. Not like that.
Oh, okay. Number 1. What's the worst trope you don't like seeing in visual novels or in general?
That would be, like, I know a lot of people like the tsundere trope, and I do like it to some extent.
Which trope?
But when tsundere.
Oh, okay.
But when I see it being played to a level where a character is being downright nasty to the person they're dating, just for the sake of not admitting that they have feelings for them and whatnot, that's where I draw the line. I don't like seeing that kind of thing.
Cool. The next question is, what's your favorite trope to write about?
This one is kind of difficult to answer without kind of making spoilers. See, what's the most innocuous way where I can answer this? I like writing stories where the main character has an actual tangible impact on other people's lives, where the main character is actually a big part of their lives turning out for the better.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it really does say a lot that it isn't considered a requirement that characters matter. Next question from CV4. If the main group were to be in an RPG, what would their main class be?
Well, June is the most obvious one. He'd be a bard. I'd imagine Keisuke being an enchanter, being on the back line, providing offensive buffs to his allies and debuffs to his enemies. The MC would most undoubtedly be a fighter. Shoichi would probably be a paladin or some kind of defensive-oriented tank class. And even though a lot of people don't actually consider Saya a main character, if she were there, she'd be a monk.
She'd be a monk? Why would she be a monk? I imagine she'd be the tank.
No, she'd be the person beating everyone up with her bare fists.
Oh, that's what monks do? I didn't fucking know.
Yeah, in very old school RPGs, monk was sometimes translated to pugilist instead, but
oh, Jesus.
The consensus nowadays is to call it monk.
Okay. The next question from CV4. What's the weirdest comment of your game you've ever gotten?
Well, it's not the weirdest comment. It's the weirdest, at least to me, it's the weirdest string of comments because I've gotten messages from multiple people asking this over the past years. Ever since Shoichi got the first rework to his sprite, and it got a little more intense after the CG where he's sharing a bed with the player. I've gotten a few messages from people, not dissing on it, but just stating a fact. Most of them with very broken English, asking stuff like, "Can we see Shoichi's penis, please?"
Jesus. There's a lot of thirst in this fandom. A lot of fucking thirst. Next question. What is your weirdest dream?
You mean weirdest dream as in the weirdest aspiration I have for life, or the weirdest dream I've had while asleep?
I would assume dream you've had while you were asleep.
That's hard to answer because I tend to forget most of my dreams, so I can't really provide a good enough answer for that.
That's cool. Do you think Waluigi should be a playable character in Smash?
I don't even play Smash. I have no way of answering that.
We are never going to date now.
I mean, my ex-boyfriend wanted to introduce me to Smash when I visited him before we broke up.
Oh, damn.
But the only time I've ever played Smash was Smash 64 emulated on a computer because other than the 3DS, well, the 2DS I've never had any Nintendo consoles, and I basically bought the 2DS exclusively to play Monster Hunter.
Oh, Monster Hunter, nice. Well, cool. I mean, I started with the original Smash 64, and I personally do think Waluigi should be a playable character in Smash, but next question from CV4. What type of music do you like?
That's hard to answer because, first of all, I'm not familiar enough with music to be able to discern between all the subtle differences in genre. And second of all, because I listen to all kinds of stuff. I listen to a bit of classical. I listen to American pop, rock. I listen to Japanese pop, rock, rap. It's too much. I'd be listing the few genres I know for a while if I were to try.
All right, so you're eclectic.
Yeah.
Nice. I am as well. Next question. How do you feel about working out?
I love swimming, as in going to a pool and just swimming around for hours on end. I hate going to the gym because it's really tedious for me. And I just catch myself thinking, oh my god, I'm being anywhere else, but anywhere else that isn't this. I did martial arts for years. I loved practicing martial arts. I love swimming. I love sports, even though I'm a couch potato. I love volley. I used to play volley a lot as a child. I love football. I played a lot of sports as a kid before I started developing problems with my eyesight, and I stopped because I literally couldn't see the ball anymore. I just hate working out in a gym. It's so boring.
I fucking feel you, dude. I goddamn hate it. The next question comes from someone that isn't McCurdy CV4, but it is not the last time McCurdy CV4 will pop up. This next one is from Jay Wolfie, who asks, how do you make a visual novel? How do you submit it to people like Decker Link?
Oh, first of all, I didn't ever submit it to anyone in specific.
Yeah, I'm kind
I
of operating on a misconception there. Like, usually when I play a game, I'm the one that finds the game, or at least someone has sent it to me that isn't the developer. So, we could just ignore that second half. But how do you make a visual novel?
Well, in my case, I looked for an engine that I could use that was directed specifically to making visual novels. I have a lot of experience with RPG Maker, and I could totally have used it for that. But RPG Maker's interface, and it's just not designed for this kind of game, and it would require a lot of work to do it. It would be totally possible, totally doable. I've seen a lot of visual novels made on RPG Maker, but it's a lot more work than should be required. It's much easier working on Ren'Py because Ren'Py is built for that sort of thing.
Cool. I've been thinking about making my own, so I'm fucking clueless when it comes to actually developing a game. So any and all tips are appreciated.
When I was learning Ren'Py, I mostly spent hours on end scouring tutorials on the internet. Whenever I had a more specific question, I tried Googling it I tried phrasing the question in a multitude of different ways and then Googling it to see if I could somehow find the specific question I was looking for. It took a lot of patience, and I'm still learning how to do stuff. But it was basically just scouring the internet for any and all tutorials I could use to learn how to build the game.
Cool. Moving back to McCry CV4's questions, they ask, you think you'd like to visit Japan? If so, where would you go and what would you do?
I mean, if I visited Japan, I would probably want to know how to speak Japanese because otherwise I'd be lost. I'd be like a deer in the headlights. Mm-hmm. If I did go to Japan, I'd like to visit Akihabara because they have a lot of cool stuff over there.
Oh yeah, it's basically Vegas, not with so much the gambling, but with all the lights and the fun and the atmosphere.
Yeah, that's the number one place I'd like to visit.
Nice. Another question from McCry CV4 asks, so, how'd you like making those tennis graphs?
Oh, dear God. I first started making those so people wouldn't get lost in the game. And I've gotten questions about it multiple times before, like, why did you stop making them? They're so helpful. And I'm not going to contest the fact that they're helpful, but they are really, they're a giant time sink. For like the first match against Keisuke, it's like 30 to 40 minutes long, the match. It took me an entire week to make all the images, program them into the game, yada, yada, yada. Too much of a time sink to be worth it. I'm still not sure if I'm going to remove the ones that are already in the game because they are helpful. I might at some point for the sake of consistency, but I'm not going to keep making them because they're really, really, they take too much work to make. Just not worth it.
Jesus. Loquacious Productions asks, what was the hardest thing to make in the game and why? Was it those tennis graphs?
It wasn't the hardest. It was just the most tedious because it took so long. Like it felt like it never ended. The hardest thing was probably trying to learn how to program all the different transitions in the game, so mostly the character expressions could transition seamlessly. Because when I first started the game, I was using the default transition commands that are supplied by Ren'Py, and what happens is every time a character switched expressions, the whole game would stop. No message would be displayed in the text box whatsoever, so you'd have to wait the half second that it took for the expressions to finish transitioning into the screen over and over and over and over again. And in like a 10-minute scene, you could spend 2 to 3 entire minutes just of downtime waiting for the expressions to finish changing, which was a real chore. And when I tried learning how to make them work seamlessly like they do now in the game, where the expressions roll around while everything else is happening, I bugged the game so hard that I spent 2 weeks unable to launch it. It would just crash every time. It took me a long time to actually fix the code to make the expressions show up.
Jesus. That's fucking crazy.
Yeah, and the worst part is it's actually a really simple code, but because RenPy is always getting updated, the code that was supplied in their I want to say help desk, but it's not really. It's kind of like their documentation. A lot of the code that's supplied in their documentation is obsolete and just doesn't work in the latest versions of RenPy. So you kind of have to go in blind and find out how you can fiddle with the code to make it work. Otherwise, it can range from doing nothing to hopelessly crashing your game.
Jesus. Well, this certainly isn't encouraging me to want to fucking make a game right now. Cohen Zakira asks, what is the song played in the June route when June is in the hospital after he hit his head and everyone comes to check up on him?
I don't remember what track I used for that scene off the top of my head, so I'd actually have to check on the game files. Give me a second.
In the meantime, we'll have a word from our sponsor, Nobody. Nobody is a seamless app that you can use no time, where you don't actually do anything and it sucks.
Okay, I used one track in the game. This is a track that I recognize it. This track is, there was this this page on itch.io where the guy was selling songs for people to use in their games, and my then boyfriend, now ex-boyfriend, he bought the pack for me and said, maybe there are some songs in here that you could use in the game. There were only 2 in there that I ended up using, but I use them quite often now.
Nice. Well, that's very nice. Next question is from Gita Cat. Oh, you didn't actually ever say what the song was.
The name of the song is Snowy Day, but since it was my ex who bought it for me, I don't remember ever actually getting the link to the itch.io page where it was being sold, so I wouldn't be able to link it.
Okay. Well, at least they have the title to go off. Maybe it's on YouTube somewhere. Well, they might be able to find it.
Mm-hmm.
Next question is from Gita Cat, who asks, will there be multiple endings for each character route?
Multiple, depends on what you mean by multiple. If you mean like 5, 6 different endings, then no. But I want to be able to at least make something like a bad ending, a normal true ending, or at least a normal and true ending, if disregarding the bad. I want to have at least 2 different endings to each.
Hello? Yeah, you kind of cut out there for a second.
Really? Where did I cut out?
You were just saying that you were wanting a normal ending and a good ending.
I said that I want to have at least a normal ending and the quote-unquote perfect ending, if not have a bad, normal, and good variation, but not much more than that.
Okay. Miha Sapine asks, how has the visual novel affected your life/daily life?
Well, I mean, I'm living off of my Patreon income right now, which reason I was able to move out into my own. I moved into a completely different state where I have no family in the city that I'm living. I'm living completely by myself, so I'd say it affected my daily life a lot. It kind of also narrows my dating prospects now that I'm single again, because I'm too afraid of the idea of dating someone that has no idea what the furry fandom is, because now that this is basically my work and such a huge part of my life, I'd be scared of trying to introduce someone to it and them seeing me as a weirdo for it.
That is tough. You can just say you're a writer.
Yeah, but most people get curious and ask, "What are you writing?"
True. Well, again, you never know what the future holds.
Mm-hmm.
Miha Sapine also asks, favorite part of Deckerlink? Told you, there's...
I don't know how to answer that.
Well, I mean, I want to emphasize, these are real questions that were asked. I'm not just throwing these in. Like, this is real stuff that was asked.
I have a hard time coming up with an answer because I've only properly talked to you over the past 2 weeks. I like a lot of what I got to know, but there's still so much that I don't know that kind of hard to answer. Like, I like the sound of your voice. I like your personality, but I don't know much, so it's hard to say.
Aw, well, that's still enough to make me say thank you. I like your voice and personality, too.
Thank you.
Next up, from Dirk the Red Panda, the infamous Dirk the Red Panda, who asks, how much personal experience do you have playing sports?
I used to play sports all the time when I was a kid. I was mostly... Okay, so there were 3 sports that I played a lot. Funnily enough, none of them was because I chose them. I played football, or as Americans know, soccer, because my brother was a big fan of it and he wanted me to play with him. So he was a forward and I was a goalkeeper. My mother played a lot of volleyball when she was younger, and she really got me into volleyball. I still love volleyball to death to this day, and I played it a lot. When I still played it, I mostly played as a setter, but because I stopped playing after I developed issues with my eyesight, like I have really bad farsightedness, or is it nearsightedness? I don't know right now. Because I have really bad problems with my eyesight, I have a hard time seeing the ball. And I've had these since I was young. So the age that I stopped playing volleyball, people didn't really spike the ball much. So even though I was a setter, I didn't actually make many setups. I didn't do much, to be honest. And the third thing that I played was because my father liked it. It was basketball. And in that one, I mostly played as a point guard. So the only thing that's in common with all 3 games and with my overall personality is that I mostly played supportive roles. I mostly played trying to support my team.
I thought you were going to go in a totally different route with that. I was like, the only thing in common with all those games and my personality is that it involves balls.
Nah, I'm not going to be that obvious on your toes.
Well, I appreciate your subtle nuance and not going for the low-hanging fruit. Next up is a question from Nova Fox, who asks, whose route is the hardest to program?
I mean, if we're talking about programming, actual programming, they are all the same difficulty because they all entail the same technical aspect. It's writing dialogue, programming the facial expression changes, the changes in background, music. It's all the same. If you mean actually a difficulty in writing, like how difficult it is to come up with content for them, I'd say that Case K is the hardest because he's the most... I don't know if this is the expression I'm looking for, but I'm going to say it anyway. He's the most contained. He's the person that puts himself out there the most. He doesn't really wear his emotions on his sleeve. He tends to keep to himself most of the time. So it's really hard trying to write for someone that's supposed to do all these things that are supposed to be meaningful, but are also supposed to be really subtle. Like Keisuke does a lot of really meaningful stuff, but it's all really subtle. He's not out there like the others, so it's really hard writing for his personality.
Okay. Next up is a question from Kurt C3PT, who asks, how long will the game be? As in, how many in-game days or months will it be?
I can't really give you a solid answer on that. Going back and forth, I've already shortened the game quite a lot from my initial desire, and I might shorten it more depending, because I don't really want to drag this out for too long. I think that's one of the main issues with some games. Like, you can have this game that's really cool, but after playing it for 60 to 70 hours, you kind of start zoning out and losing interest, and I don't want to go that route. So
extracurricular activities.
I'm kind of gouging the reactions of people as they...
You're gouging?
Gauging! I used the wrong word. No, I'm not gouging anything.
Continue. I'm sorry.
I'm analyzing people's reaction as I go along and deciding based on that whether I remove more or less of the fluff. Because I do have a lot of scenes that are in the game for no reason other than provide levity. They're the slice of life scenes. I have written down all the really important points that need to be addressed in the routes. But I also add scenes and days in between them that are supposed to just give the characters a break to just, act natural.
Okay. Kurtz also asked, how did you decide on each character's species? Is there a reason for Keisuke to be a hare and for Saya to be a bunny, etc.?
Saya's reason for being a bunny is pretty much that she's spry. She's really energetic. She jumps around a lot. So I thought that made sense for a bunny. Shoichi is a husky because I fucking love huskies. They're my favorite. It's my fursona. It's there isn't a lot to think about with that. June is a tiger because I like how a lot of people think of tigers as being like these really regal and dignified animals. And then I basically portrayed June as this clumsy goofball of a cat. And I just thought that the contrast would be amusing to see. The MC is a Shiba because I wanted the MC to be a dog. I hadn't yet decided on what species. I went with Shiba because I thought it made sense with the setting and because Shibas are adorable. And Keisuke is a hare, mostly because I thought it looked cool.
Well, cool. Another question from Kurtz. Will you do an anime opening of sorts at the beginning like they did to Nekajishi?
Nekajishi has an anime opening at the beginning?
Yep.
I think I remember playing Nekajishi, but I don't remember that. But I'd imagine that I need a budget to be able to commission the art, animation, and music for that sort of thing, so there's nothing in my plans for the time being.
Okay. Another question from Kurtz. When will we anticipate the not safe for work bits? We finally got to this question.
Shoichi's route is the one that's closest to reaching it. That's all I'll say.
Well, of course, that's the only route where they've actually gotten together.
Yes, that's my way of giving an answer and a non-answer at the same time.
Another question from Kurtz. How will you be able to do the not safe for work bits without it looking too rushed or awkward for the characters? Think Shoichi's route. You just started dating and then do the a few weeks later, or in Jun's route where, you know.
I mean, the game is already over 20 hours long. It's hard to call anything that happens now rush.
Yeah.
But Shoichi's route is still going to have a little bit of getting to know each other on a romantic level before we reach that. For Jun, it's like a lot of people have a hard time picturing him being that way because he's always so innocent. But I'm just going to explain it, I'm just going to mangle a popular saying a little bit. Beware the innocent looking ones.
Ooh, that has possible implications. Oh man. Another question from Kurtz. Did you know that Shuichi is the goodest boy to ever exist?
What?
You've seen it on Twitter. There's been a little thing going on. People debating who is the best boy. And apparently, Kurtz is on the side of Shoichi being the goodest boy to ever exist.
I did not know that. Thanks for telling me.
Another question from Kurtz. Where did you draw inspiration for Saya? I've had so many friends like her, LMAO.
Okay, I actually have to dial back a little bit on this one. A while ago, you asked me if any of the characters were based on actual real people, but since you phrased any of the main characters, I didn't think of mentioning Saya on that. Saya is largely based around my best friend growing up. She was a girl who was exactly that way. She loved to poke me around. She loved to punch me because she thought it was funny, like playful punches on the shoulder and whatnot. So a lot of her personality is based on that.
Cool. The last question from Kurtz. Will you be doing more sports-related novels or other projects in general after Tennis Ace?
After Tennis Ace, I'm going to do a 180 in terms of genre, and I'm going to go for a fantasy setting, so not likely.
Ooh, fantasy. I like it. I mean, recently I played a sci-fi visual novel for an episode, and it is like a carry-away hit. Like, it got like 2,000 fucking views on one episode. Like, I'm blown fucking away by that shit.
Is it the sci-fi BN released by the creator of Vekal, Adastra?
Yeah.
I've heard of it, but I haven't actually played it. But I can understand why it's so popular because it's coming out of what is largely a success that is Echo. So I understand it.
Yeah. Next question from Dilly C. Dilly, who asks, will there be cameos for Patreon followers? Like, let's say they won a slot, they might appear in the game, maybe like for a little interaction or something.
They have been there for a while now. The first Patreon character introduced was Victor, who was the character for my ex-boyfriend, who is still one of my patrons. Alex is a Patreon OC. Ty, The panda you meet in June's character select is also another Patreon OC. There have been a few Patreon characters in the game for a while now.
Oh, cool. I did not know that. I knew about Vic, but I didn't know about all the other ones. Magic Guy 38 asks, will the routes tie back to Yuichi's arc of getting out of his slump, or will the main focus be on the relationships? Like, will there be a tennis match at the end with the number one player a la the prefectural tournament?
Yuichi's, like, personal... it's not personal growth, the expression I want to use, is personal development is very much so a focus in in all the routes, because a big point with them is how all the characters, work together with each other in a relationship while also pursuing their own interests and careers. So what happens to the MC is very much so still important during the routes.
Cool. Despa58, who is in the chat with us, asks, if you make another game, will the characters from Tennis Ace be in it?
No.
Okay, moving on. Meme Lord 420 asks, how hard is it to develop the game? How long to make a scene, for instance?
That really depends. Sometimes I can be really inspired and stuff comes out like really quick. When I had first started out, I had all this inspiration. I could write an entire update in a year. Dear God, no. In a week, and spend the next 3 weeks of the month just bug testing it and making sure everything was working okay and refining it. But inspiration isn't something you can live off of for your entire life. And when it goes away, you have to be capable of continuing to write despite it. And it takes a lot longer when I'm not inspired to do things. That's why a lot of the time, my updates come out like right before the end of the last day of the month.
Cool. Also from Meme Lord 420, they ask, which is your favorite scene in the game so far?
I mean, it's the only confession scene in the game, so it's not really fair because there's nothing to compare it to at the moment. But I enjoyed writing the payoff for Shoichi's route for finally getting in the confession scene and finally getting, the player finally gets a payoff for all the investment they put in with the character.
Nice. And last question from Meme Lord. They ask, when the full game is done, will it cost money?
I didn't intend for it to. I recently got reached out by a website that I don't think I should name, but they were asking me if I was interested in selling my game in their website after it was done. I have very conflicted feelings about this, so I'm still not able to provide a solid response.
Cool. Yeah, you take your time. That's a very important business decision right there. Next up from Anime Guy, they ask, I loved Shuichi's confession, but it felt a little bit rushed on the Yuichi side. Is that going to be fleshed out more? I think it would be better if for a while Yuichi has to think about what Shuichi really means to him and his possible true deeper feelings for him and deal with the awkwardness it would inevitably bring before confessing himself.
I mean, that's kind of a big part of that's kind of the point with that. The confession was definitely totally rushed for the MC. During the entire confession scene, he's babbling about how he has no feeling, and he's just trying it out for the sake of trying it out and, making sense of his feelings. He even says it outright that he doesn't think he can tell Shuichi he loves him back. So that is pretty much the point.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. If it's intentional, it makes sense. I like it. Next up from Gohan, they ask, are you having a lot of fun making Tennis Ace, and what is the best part of making the game so far?
Well, I'm not gonna lie, I love working with the things I love, and it definitely is fun seeing how people react to Although I've been kind of salty over the past year or so because it feels that I've been getting less and less feedback as time goes by. Because when Tennis Ace first started getting popularity, the updates would get like 20 responses on Patreon with lots of large text with people telling me in minute detail everything they liked and didn't like about the update. And nowadays, I don't really get much more than, oh, thanks for the new update. Thank you, I enjoyed it, or stuff like that. So it kind of irks me a little bit because the feedback is really helpful in deciding how to progress. But I do love working on it, but I'm going to say that working on something you love does come with its fair share of challenges, because when the thing that used to be your hobby, that used to be the thing you did to help deal with the stress of everyday life, becomes something that you actually have to do to support yourself, it starts becoming the source of stress in your everyday life. And that can kind of sour the feelings you have to it for a bit. Like, work is still work, no matter how you put it. Even if you're working on your passion project, it still provides you with lots of worries.
Yeah, because a lot of people, they like to throw out the phrase, if you love what you do, then it's not work. And I'm like, no, if you love what you do, you're going to work on it. Like, it inherently requires work if you care about it, and so you can't say that just loving what you do means you're never going to work a day in your life. I mean, that's I don't know. I've mixed feelings about when it comes to turning a passion into a paycheck. Like it's a difficult thing to wrap my head around, especially considering specifically what I want to do. I want to be a voice actor, so it's kind of hard to translate that into a paycheck at all, let alone do it in a fulfilling way. CV4 asks again a couple questions. Who would win in a tennis match? The main character of Tennis Ace or the main character of extracurricular activities?
I have no idea, and I'm in no position to that question.
May I offer my thoughts on the subject?
Sure, but I wouldn't really.
You wouldn't what? You cut out.
I wouldn't really be able to comment because I'm not that familiar with extracurricular activities.
No problem. I personally think that it would be a good match, but that Yuichi would win. And the reason for that is that Yuichi is the star player of their team. The main character of extracurricular activities is not the star player of their team. They're the number 2 player of the team. So already there's a ranking difference, and you never really see the main character in extracurricular activities have that extra sensory experience where they're tapping into that thing, where they're experiencing senses beyond normal capacity. So the simple fact that the main character, that Yuichi has that ability and they're the number 1 player, I think would make the match edge out in his favor. But I do think it would be a good match to watch.
I mean, a lot of that has to do with the fact that I'm playing with some shonen manga tropes straight, and Dine probably isn't, so I don't think that's a really fair comparison.
I know. Well, even if you just go with the fact that it's a number 1 player going against a number 2 player, I think a better match would be Yuichi versus Spencer, which is the number 1 player in extracurricular activities team. I think just having the number 1 players go up against each other would be a better match, but that's besides the point for me. That's just my thoughts on the subject.
I still can't comment because I'm not really familiar with how good the characters in EA are supposed to be or not, so
that's okay.
Hard to say.
That's okay. CV4 also asks, if you were to describe the main group as a flower, what would they be and why?
I have no idea. I know nothing of course.
Grell says hi.
Hi.
Chef asks, was there anything else you did in the past in terms of visual novel making? You mentioned your RPG maker time, but did you ever delve into the visual novel making aspect of it?
No, the first time I ever fiddled with making my own essays.
You cut out in the middle there, but I think you said the first time you ever made it was essays, yeah?
Yeah, that's exactly what I said.
All right, cool. McCry one comes back again, asking, how do you feel about the conspiracy of Tennis Aces World being connected to Dine's extracurricular activities?
The what?
There's a real conspiracy going on that they're in the same world.
They're not.
So you're a little shocked, if not a little offended, by the sounds of it?
I'm not offended, I'm just shocked.
I mean, originally there was a question in here about, would you ever consider doing a crossover episode, like a short visual novel with Dine, where the two teams had to play against each other, or something like that?
I don't think that would really work, considering our games. It doesn't sound like our games approach the sport in the same manner, because even though I am trying to stay true to the sport of tennis, I play straight with a lot of anime tropes, and that just wouldn't work with a more subdued approach.
Yeah. That, and I think the language barrier would be kind of difficult, because you couldn't really have character interactions, because your characters speak Japanese and his characters speak English.
Yeah, there's that too.
Yeah. Oh, well. Damn You Emron asks, were you influenced by other furry visual novel games like Morinatsu or Nekajishi?
Was Nekajishi even out by the time I started making Tennis Days? Didn't Nekajishi only become a thing like late in 2018? That's when I remember playing it.
I don't honestly know. All I know is when it when I played it. That's the only thing I know.
I mean, I did play Nekojishi, but I don't remember much of it off the top of my head. It didn't really stick with me. Morinatsu I played many years ago. Wouldn't call it an influence. I was mostly influenced by the sports anime and manga that I both read and watched, as well as the slice of life genre in general.
Cool. McCry 1 CV4's last two questions are finally here. The first one is, so, how you like the music? Cat smiley face.
Oh, the music you compose, told you times private, I really like.
You cut out heavily throughout that. I don't know what you just said.
I said the music you composed, like I've already said in private conversations, I really like.
And their last question, they say, I have the most important question to ask, and I shall ask it. Why did you use the word poopy?
I don't know. But I'm pretty sure I changed it once my attention was brought to it. I'm pretty sure I saw it and thought to myself, why the hell did I write that? Like, there's a sentence that I used a few times in the game where some character just says something completely absurd and someone else just asks them, what are you, 5? That was my reaction to myself. I went like, poopy, what am I, 5?
Oh, that's funny, man. That's funny. We're in the final stretch now. Who is Marshmallow Gaming? Had a lot of questions, and they were very nice, but they were all asked already. So the only one I could salvage was, is the main character going to be more comfortable with the idea of being gay throughout the storyline? Love, a major Shuichi fanboy.
Well, yeah, a lot of the story is about him coming out of his shell and learning to be comfortable with this new facet of himself that he only now discovered. So it's a big and a pretty important plot point. It's a work in progress.
Yeah. Bitch, it's Drew asked, how long did it take for you to think of the characters?
Thinking of characters doesn't usually take me long. I usually think of basic concepts for a character pretty quickly, and then I just spend a lot of time developing it and trying to, add depth, because I want my characters to sound like actual people. I don't know how successful I am at that, but I want them to actually sound like people, even if they're a bit exaggerated for the sake of comedy, instead of sounding like these flat, two-dimensional characters.
Yeah. Last question for the fan questions. We finally made it to the end. It's from Jing Silverfang, who asks, what character best describes you in Tennis Ace?
There's no character, I think, that really describes me a lot. The MC, like, for instance, the MC has a lot of the lazy aspects of myself. But I'm nowhere near as driven as he is. I'm nowhere near as self-assured. He has a lot of positive qualities that I do not and never will have. June has a lot of my, June's really geeky, which I am too, so I could say that that's also something that he and I have in common, but he's a lot more positive and upbeat and energetic than I am, and again, ever will be. So, yeah, it's really hard to answer this one.
Okay. Well, the final questions are from me. These are questions I ask everybody, and I like finding out the answers that various people have for these. The first one is, if you could have any superpower, what would it be?
I have an answer to that, but it's kind of cheating.
Cheating? Bring it the fuck on. My answer is cheating as shit.
My power would be to be able to make anything I imagine and intend to make reality a reality.
Okay, so creation.
It would be a reality warping power.
Okay, so you would intentionally make yourself OP as shit. Okay. Number 2, what would have to happen in your life for you to feel like you, quote unquote, made it?
Let's see. Working on what I love is a big must, so I need to be able to make it as a writer. It's kind of cliche to say, but I place a lot of importance on having a loving partner, so that's also a really important thing. I want someone that can bring out the best of me, someone that I can cherish and take care of. So that's also really important.
Do you have anyone in mind?
I just came out of a breakup, so I'm really not in the place to answer that.
That's true. Sorry, I didn't mean it.
No, it's fine. And this is going to sound a bit shallow, but be comfortable financially. Like, I don't mean being rich, but like not having to worry about money every month.
I don't think that's shallow at all. God damn, you know the amount of comfort it would bring me to know that I can pay the bills every month without worry? Holy fuck, that would relieve like 90% of my fucking stress right off the top.
Yeah, since I depend, what I earn in dollars isn't that high. Like, it's not a small amount, but it wouldn't be enough to make a living if the conversion rate 1-to-1. So every single day, I'm checking the conversion rate of the dollars to my currency, and every time I see it starting to plummet, a little part of me inside just goes like, "Oh shit! Oh shit! Oh shit! What if this goes so low that I won't be able to pay my bills? Oh my god! What am I gonna do?" And then I just start going on a downward spiral.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I hope everything works out. I have a feeling it will. I can't guarantee that it will, but I have a feeling things will work out the way they should. And, of course, this brings us to the end of the interview. The last thing on my list of questions just says, plug yo shit. So tell them where they can find your game, where they can experience your work, and enjoy the thing that has brought so much joy and emotional comfort to those around the world.
Well, my game, I post updates for patrons every month. Like, if anyone here isn't a patron of mine and would like to help me out, I'd really appreciate it.